Netanyahu among world leaders to condemn attack in Paris. Cartoonist John Kron speaks about the attack's impact on the cartoonist community. U.S. State Department says Palestine does not qualify as a state. And while Israel remains fearless in war, weather brings the country to a halt. Shalom and welcome to the Jerusalem Post News. Today is Thursday, January 8th, and here are your top stories. After yesterday's terror attack against a satirical French magazine, Charlie Hebdo, in Paris, which left 12 people dead, world leaders reached out to the French community to send their condolences. Prime Minister Netanyahu, U.S. President Barack Obama, and British Prime Minister David Cameron were among them.
The people of Israel send their condolences to the people of France over the brutal act of savagery in the heart of Paris today. The attacks of radical Islam know no boundaries. These are international attacks, and the response has to be international.
I thought it was appropriate for me to express my deepest sympathies to the people of Paris and the people of France for the terrible terrorist attack that took place earlier today.
What has happened in Paris is an appalling terrorist outrage, and I know that everyone in Britain will want to stand with the French government and with the French people at this time.
Late on Wednesday night, the youngest of the 3 suspects wanted in the attack turned himself into police, and reports surfaced this morning that 2 armed suspects have been located in northern France. After yesterday's attack specifically targeted Charlie Hebdo for what is believed by extreme Islamists to be offensive political drawings, cartoonists all over the world spoke to this by creating their own cartoon takes on the attack and what it says about freedom of speech. JPost's cartoonist John Kron of the Cartoon Chronicles also drew his reaction. We now have John joining us to tell us about the impact this has on the cartoonist community. Hi, John. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Lauren. Thanks for having me.
So, as a cartoonist and a Jew, how does the Paris attack affect you and your industry that you work in?
Well, Lauren, I must admit my initial reaction was of profound sadness, just as a human being and feeling for the victims, the families, and everyone who knew them. It took me a number of hours before I could reflect on what it meant to me as a cartoonist. And I felt that it really strengthened the right of cartoonists to express themselves and the right to free speech.
Now, do you think that people in your profession will tone down the severity of their cartoons after this attack has happened?
I think it's a bit early to say for sure. Undoubtedly, there will be increased levels of fear among some cartoonists, but I think once things settle down, cartoonists will return to their expression of free speech, which is such a, dare I say, it's the lifeblood of what makes a cartoonist be a cartoonist.
And what does this all say about freedom of speech in the Western world?
That freedom of speech has been attacked through the killing of innocent people, in particular journalists and cartoonists and other people working at a newspaper, says this, how strong freedom of speech is in the Western world, and that's why it's been a target in this particular vicious attack.
Now, tell us a little bit about your Paris-inspired cartoon and what exactly led you to create it.
I really went back to the original issues that were raised when the first cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad were published. And I just looked at that issue in terms of its very essence, and that is freedom of speech. There is certainly something about being a cartoonist where we're always struggling between the line of saying something profound or funny and being offensive. And each of us tries to work out where, if you excuse the pun, where we draw that line. Obviously at Charlie Hebdo, they pushed that line to the very limits. But in the end, and I may have certainly personally as a cartoonist never have done the sort of drawings or cartoonists that they would have, I completely defend their right to do them as part of the principle of free speech.
Okay, John, and if you could send a message now to cartoonists throughout the world, what would it be?
My message to cartoonists would be, cartoonists of the world, unite and keep doing what we've always been doing and what's always been our strength.
Thank you so much, John.
Goodbye, Lauren, and thanks for having me on this in this immensely sad time.
The U.S. State Department said on Wednesday that Palestine is not a state and therefore does not qualify for membership in the International Criminal Court.
The United States does not believe that the state of Palestine qualifies as a sovereign state and does not recognize it as such and does not believe that it is eligible to accede to the Rome Statute.
State Department spokeswoman Jen Psaki also said that the U.S. will oppose the Palestinian Authority's move to join the body and several others at the United Nations as technically flawed. As the whole region braced for a blizzard this week, people around the world poked fun that while Israel can handle bombs and terrorists, a few flakes of snow and gusts of wind had the country at a standstill. Jerusalem woke up this morning to a thin blanket of snow after 2 days of stormy weather that kept many at home. Local media said the storm is due to subside later today, but heavy rains are still expected throughout the region. On Wednesday, in which heavier snow was anticipated, Jerusalem's schools were canceled and roads leading to the capital were blocked, but schools reopened late this morning. Amateur video, which aired on Israeli media and was shared hundreds of times via social media on Wednesday, showed a woman struggling to walk down a street in Ramat Gan amid violent wind, which eventually knocked her down. Passers-by rushed to help the woman, who was not injured in the unfortunate incident. And that's all for today. Don't forget to go to JPost.com and check out our Facebook page for more on these developing stories. Until next week, Shabbat Shalom from the Jerusalem Post studio.